are excited about the therapists and the support staff that work for us. And we also are excited about our goal, which is being the best that we can be across the continuum and working with all of our staff. So I have been doing a lot of thinking about this in the last year and thinking about what does it really take to be a great therapist? Not just a good therapist, but a really great therapist. What does that mean? How do we do that? And how do we at Berger find those really great therapists? There's really a set of characteristics that we are looking for from a therapist. And if you don't think you have those characteristics, we'd like to help you get there. That's part of our mission too, because we think that being a great therapist is way beyond being a great clinician. Being a great clinician is obviously important. You went to school, if you were a therapist, for many, many years to gain those skills and to be able to provide clinical services that are very, very good. We pretty much assume that by the time you get here as a clinician to work with us, that you're going to have a lot of those skills. So you're going to be a good clinician. You can always learn more, but you're basically going to be a good clinician. So what are the next steps then? What takes you to that next level? Well, there's a Ralph Waldo Emerson quote that I absolutely love. It says, "Nothing great was ever accomplished without enthusiasm." And I think that's probably number one. We want you as a therapist to have great enthusiasm and to be passionate about what you do. Without that, it's just another job. And we really think maybe you might want to work somewhere else. So working for Berger, number one is enthusiastic participation. Be enthusiastic when you are working with your patients. Energy, that's another one on our list. We think that when you are providing services to patients, clients, that if you have no energy, they're certainly not going to have any energy as well. Having energy when you come to work can be difficult when you've spent perhaps a weekend with a sick child or cleaning house or some of the other, all of the, or paying bills perhaps, all of the other things that take our time and energy. So we want to create an environment at Berger that really makes a difference in terms of making it an energized place and an energetic place to work, that you can be happy coming to work that day. We think part of the solution to having enthusiasm and being energized when you are in the workplace is to be somewhat solution oriented. And I think that's a really important component, a really important characteristic of a great therapist. So many times we feel somewhat helpless. We feel that, oh, the government's telling us what to do, or we can't satisfy our coworker, or there's that piece of paper that we've got to fill out 52 times. It's just annoying, seems like anyway. But finding ways to find solutions to problems is really such an energizing process. Some of the other characteristics that we are looking for with staff and therapists particularly is that they are able to look at the big picture. When you go into a hospital, for example, you need to be thinking more than just how do I get this patient out of bed and get them moving. You've got to be thinking about what's next for them. When you're in skilled nursing, the same thing. What's next? Are they going home? Are they being discharged to an assisted living care facility? Do they have family members? What is the big picture of their needs? Not just, oh, I've got to fill out the paperwork and I have to make sure they walk with a walker today for 10 feet. I'm not interested in that component of it. That's certainly part of the job, making sure that we meet the clinical expectations. But I really want people to be looking at what is the big picture and how do we work with the whole team. That may mean a discharge planner, that may mean an orthotist, that may mean somebody from the dietary department, certainly means family, nursing directors, MDS coordinators, etc. And working with that team, understanding all of those components is a really important piece. That ties into having great assessment skills when you're working with a client. Because if you don't understand what their need is, how are you going to help them achieve their goals? You can't do it. So you have to be looking beyond just what the patient is telling you or what the client is telling you, looking at what is the bigger picture here. I'll give you an example. and this happens to be a family member who would come in and had ended up in a skilled nursing facility. And the doctor would come in and say, "Are you hurting? Are you in pain today?" And the answer was always no. So then the doctor would go out and write on his record, "No pain, nothing to do here." In fact, when the doctor left and the nursing assistant came in and tried to transfer the patient back to bed, she would scream in pain because she wasn't having pain when the doctor asked her because she was sitting still. But she was having pain when she moved even a little bit. Those are the kinds of things as clinicians we're trained to recognize. But it's really important that we look at the big picture and beyond, whether it's pain, whether it's balance, whether it's who's going to do the grocery shopping at home, that we really look at this big picture and help the people that we're trying to serve understand what all the right questions are so that we can come up with the right answers. Some of the other important characteristics for great therapists to have are obviously communication skills. Just because you know it doesn't mean that everybody else knows it. And so being able to communicate with all members of the team and have an understanding of what their lives are like, what is going on with them in terms of their needs for taking care of the patient or the resident is extremely important. Those communication skills can constantly be improved, and we offer programs with Berger where we try to help staff work on communication and work on working with their team members in a very positive way. A couple of things tie into this. One is being able to read the room, and what we mean by that is that we want our staff to understand what the person is meaning behind what they say versus just understanding that they said something. We want to know, what is the meaning? What did they actually want to convey to us? And that might not even be in the language they speak. It might be in their body language. But being able to understand more than just the few words that might be spoken to us is incredibly important. Anticipating what's next is also really important. And I find today that a lot of people have trouble with that skill. But really trying to think about, what are the consequences of my doing this? What is the outcome likely to be? Is it likely to be a positive one? Because I think when we anticipate the response and anticipate what is next in a given situation, we will modify how we approach that situation, and we will do a far better job of getting to the outcome we want because we're anticipating the end from the beginning. There are several other characteristics of a really great therapist. Obviously, time management is critical, and it's going to become even more critical as time goes on with the new healthcare systems. Time management is a skill that comes from practice. It comes from thinking outside the box. It comes from thinking about, well, if I did this, then how this might work a little bit better. And it comes from really being open to being flexible, which is another key consideration. At the end of the day, though, I think probably the most important characteristic of a great therapist is compassion and caring. And one of the things that I believe in and try to do regularly is to step outside of my arena, which tends to be the administrative side, solve the regulatory questions, figure out the policies and procedures, et cetera, et cetera. Stepping outside of that and looking at what we do as an organization. Coming back to the very beginning of our mission statement, which is that we're here to make a positive difference. We have so many examples of clients, patients, where we've made a positive difference. To me, that's exciting. That's what we're here for. At the end of the day, it's not really about the documentation, the regulation, the paperwork. It's about people. I'd like to share with you a story about a patient that I saw when I was a brand new therapist many years ago. She was in a skilled nursing facility, and to this day, I remember this lady. She was very difficult. She did not want to participate in therapy. She did very little. And we realized she was extremely depressed. We didn't quite know why, but she was doing nothing. We also realized that she could get better and go home. That was our goal. or she could just stay where she was and live there for years and years and years. Well, we finally discovered that she was depressed because a year prior to her being in this skilled nursing facility, her husband had been there and he had died there. And she was extremely depressed. And she assumed that now it was her turn and she was going to die in this nursing facility. We were finally able to convince her that she was not going to die. In fact, she was going to live for several years. And she could choose. She could either work on her therapy and her exercises, and she could actually go home, or she could stay and just wait to die for several years. When she finally understood that, she began participating in her therapy program, and she did get better, and she did go home. And to this day, it kind of gives me goosebumps because she literally went home and baked a cake for the therapist. That was so exciting and so neat to see that success. And those are the kinds of things. I think back to so many people that we've had in our outpatient departments. I remember one gentleman who came in a wheelchair, not that old of a gentleman, and he was never supposed to walk again. Well, he did. It took about a year, but he did. He was able to walk. There are many, many examples, and I think most therapists have people that they remember throughout their career that just made an impression on them. But I think that at the end of the day, that caring, that compassion, that desire to make a difference in spite of any obstacles that might be out there are really the factors, the important pieces of what we're all about at Berger. Right now, healthcare is in an amazing transformation. In all of the years that I've worked with healthcare, this is the biggest change that I have ever seen. And I think I've seen most of those changes. Going back to the late 70s and into the 90s, when we had massive changes in the healthcare system, today is even more so than that. So we have to be able to look at this and say, how do we get through this? How do we navigate through the obstacles that are facing us? Are there rocks in our way? Absolutely. But how do we get through that? How do we navigate through that? So one of the characteristics that we have at Berger is trying to find solutions. That's how we are oriented. That's how we think. What's the solution? If this doesn't work this direction, how can we make it work this direction? And what is the best opportunity for us? Does that mean meeting with our congressmen and helping them understand how best programs need to be implemented so we can actually do our job? We have many challenges ahead of us, but we feel up to the task. We feel that we can make it through those rocks. We can navigate through the changes that are coming with the Affordable Care Act, with exchanges, even understanding the terminology that we're dealing with, which is completely new, the IT issues, which are completely new and changing daily. Is it work? Absolutely. But we are finding solutions to these problems. We will make it work, and we're excited about that. When I first started, as I've said many times in the past, it was just physical therapy. It was myself and another part-time therapist. Now we have staff statewide. We have services in every imaginable rehabilitation environment. And I do believe that every day of the week we are making an amazing difference in people's lives. And that's what we expect from an outstanding, great therapist.